Okay, so we have, today we're going to focus on polynomials that you need to use a formula to solve. So this means they are not factorable, not easily factorable, using any of the tricks that we have learned in this unit. So we need to find the variables that make the equation true, or the solution. So we are going to still be talking about quadratic equations, which have the highest exponent to be true, which means that we're going to get two roots. Okay, so when the equations are not factorable, we're going to use something called the quadratic formula. And the good news about the quadratic formula is you are never going to need to memorize it. You'll always be given it, even when we use it in chemistry class. Okay, so you want to highlight that and take a good look at that. Now, the big thing with the quadratic formula is your equation needs to be in standard form. Okay, so I have been using that word. So there are questions where you need to rearrange first. Sometimes they're just straightforward. The good news is you don't have to worry about dividing by a common factor or trying to use decomposition or any of that. And I'm also going to be really emphatic about what you're supposed to do. So the question will say, solve the equation using the quadratic formula. Okay, so you don't have to, in grade 10, you don't have to guess you don't have to try to guess if it's factorable or not, okay? So here's the quadratic formula. So one thing that can be helpful if you forget what standard form is, now it is in alphabetical order, right? So A is 2, this is the A value. B is next, is 15. And C is the number because it's last. And you're always going to see the equal to 0, and that's the same whether it's factorable or not when you're solving the equation. So just like we did yesterday, we're going to find two values where this equation is true. And one of the reasons is when you factor something with the quadratic formula, you'll notice here that you're going to square root. And whenever you square root, there's always a plus and a minus value, right? So we're going to consider the positive value and the negative value. Okay, so I'm going to plug this in. So negative b plus or minus b squared, 15 squared, minus 4, a is 2, C is 1 over 2. So you might find that people will talk about, that some calculators would do the quadratic formula for you, but there's still little picadillo things about it that you have to know how to do. So one of the big ones is remembering or using, not forgetting to do negative b. Okay, so you'll see why in the next equation how that can influence your values. Okay, so we have negative 15 plus or minus the square root. 15 squared is 225. 4 times 2 is 8, so minus 8 over 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, so now we're going to separate. Okay, so we've got a positive root and a negative root. So I'm just rewriting it. Negative 15 plus the square root. I'm going to do the math. 225 minus 8 is 217 over 4. And negative 15 minus the square root of 217 over 4. Okay, so then again, you have to solve the top first. We have to do that square root first. Leave a few decimal places. Okay, and then over here, now the square root is going to be the same number. You're just subtracting it. Not that you couldn't do it in your calculator again, just to check you were right. I'm running out of room there, so I'll just do 2 decimal places. Okay, so now we have 2 answers. So eventually, the last lesson for this section in 5.9, we're going to talk about what the roots mean. So yesterday we got one positive answer, one positive x value and one negative x value. We didn't get that here, but we're not too concerned because it's just a random equation. Okay? All right, so let's do another one. So here we have x squared minus 6x plus 4. So even though the a value is only 1, that's fine. The b value is -6. And the c value is 4. So then this time, when you go to plug it in, you're doing -6. So what happens there, you get a positive, right? Also, be careful, be careful, be careful. When you do -6 squared, you have to get positive 36. So if your calculator doesn't do that right, then that could mess you up, okay? So be careful there. So positive 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 16 over 2, positive 6 plus or minus the square root of 20. So again, we're going to do positive root. It doesn't matter which one you do first at all. Oops, I forgot the divide 2 there. And so 4.472 over 2. Okay, so this time we get 2 positive roots. So for today's homework, you're just practicing getting used to using the formula. And then tomorrow we'll